Tell a life story about when you realized you had to get the fuck out. My mom said this morning, please don't go to uni today. Just stay at home. I have a bad feeling about this. I laughed but stayed home. I didn't want to spoil her mood. That day a guy came into the building with a knife, stabbed 2 people in the hallway, then ran away. One of them was a classmate of mine. I realized my gut was no joke, and something was wrong in this town. A month later, I packed my bags. My grandfather lived in a village where there was one house that they said nobody went there. They said there was a massacre there in the 90s. The locals wouldn't even go near it. One day me and my friend decided to check it out. We went there at night just for fun. The house was quiet, but the windows were boarded up from the inside, and there were fresh scratches on the wall. And then we heard someone in the attic. There were no stairs. We ran without looking back. I left my grandfather the next day. I don't joke about it now. I rented an apartment. Everything was fine, but there was one door in the hallway without a handle. The landlady said, don't mind it. I didn't. Until at night I heard someone scratching inside. I packed up my stuff in 10 minutes. I never came back. We lived in a neighborhood where there was a lot of yelling at night. But one day it was especially quiet. I was sitting there with my headphones on when this came into my friend's chat room. Dudes, we've got a drive-by shooting on our street. 2 people are dead. I come out, a bunch of cars, cops, cordon off. Turns out they were guys we knew. They died by accident. They were in the wrong place. Me and my friend sold everything and moved. Not for comfort. We moved for a chance to survive. I was a waitress in a small town in New Mexico. We close at 11 p.m., usually after 10 o'clock. That night at 10:45, a man came in. Tall, bald, long coat, heavy looking. He sat in the farthest corner and didn't order for a long time, just stared. When I approached, he smiled and said, I don't need anything. I just want to sit. I told him we were closing. I know. I'm waiting for you to be alone. I laughed nervously. He didn't laugh back. When the manager left, he was still sitting there. I called the chief, told him I couldn't kick him out. The chief said to call the cops. I pretended to call. Then he got up and walked out. 30 minutes later, I got a knock on my window from the kitchen. He's standing behind your car. I called the police for real. They came, he was gone. The next day I quit my job, and I drove to another state because someone had written on the windshield of my car with their finger, don't leave. I know where you are. University of Kentucky. A dormitory built in the 50s. My friend and I lived in a unit where 4 rooms shared one long hallway and a common bath. Everything was fine until one day a weird dude moved into the next room. Didn't talk much, just sat and stared at the wall. At night, he'd just stand in the hallway and not talk. One day, a friend went into the bathroom and found the word bleed carved in the mirror with a glass cutter. We thought it was a prank. The next week, a girl from our floor went missing. She was found 4 days later in the woods, alive but delirious. She said, he took me through the mirror. At night, we were awakened by a scream. The hallway was dark. When I turned on the light, the bathroom mirror was broken. And the neighbor was gone. Whether he'd run away, no one knew. I packed up and went home to another state. Without renting a room. I just left. This floor's closed now. But they kind of replaced the mirror. If you look, sometimes the reflection's a little late. 2007, I just got my license. I went to California with a friend just to see the ocean. We slept in a car, sometimes in motels. One night, near Bakersfield, we saw a guy on the side of the road. Young, with a backpack. There were hardly any cars. We pulled over. He got in the back, said hello politely, told us his name, Jake. Said he was headed towards Sacramento. At first, everything was fine. But after about 20 minutes, he said, do you know how quickly a person can die from blood loss if you cut an artery in the groin? We didn't say anything. He continued. 60 seconds. I tested it. We stopped abruptly and said we weren't going any further. He got out, didn't argue. As we drove away, the friend looked back. There was a folded knife on the seat. At first, we thought we'd take him to the police. But then he said, it's not his prints. It's my knife. I always carry it, but I never left it behind. We both looked at it. It was perfectly centered on the seat. A day later, we were home. We didn't make it to the ocean. My neighbor in suburban Austin was odd, but silent. He looked like a typical man in his 40s, always with a coffee glass and glasses. One night, 2 guys in a black Toyota drove up to his place. A couple minutes later, there's a rumble. Then silence. I looked out, one of the guys comes running out with a backpack and drives off. I called the cops. They came, stood outside the house and left. Didn't even go inside. The next day, the neighbor put the house up for sale. 2 days later, he was gone. The policeman later said, "It's none of your business." A week later, someone threw a rock through my window with a note. A good neighbor is a silent neighbor. I sold the house without even going to pick up my stuff. I went to uni in Vegas. My friend and I rented a cheap apartment in a one-story complex in a ghetto neighborhood. Everything seemed fine. But once a week, expensive cars started arriving at the apartment next door. People in suits, girls in fur coats. No signs, nothing. Just silence. We once asked our neighbor what was going on. He said, "If you want to live to graduate, don't ask." A month later, masked men came in. Shots were heard. Then silence again. None of the tenants talked about it. I transferred to another college the next semester. My girlfriend invited me to visit her family for Thanksgiving, somewhere in the backwoods of Texas. Everyone was friendly except for one, her older brother. He looked like I owed him something. One night he called me outside for a smoke. He took me behind the house, pulled out a gun and asked me, "Are you sure you're serious about her?" I said yes. He said, "Because around here, if somebody lies, they bury them next to the barn." I thought it was a joke, but his face was dead. A week later, I broke up. Life is more precious than love. Went to Charlotte, lived on campus. The usual partying noise. I came back from a part-time job around 2 a.m. one night. I hear someone following me from the parking lot to my dorm door. I turned around, a guy in his 20s, hoodie, silent. I go in, he follows. I say, "Who are you here to see?" He says, "Your place." I run to the elevator, push all the buttons. He's standing in the lobby watching. 10 minutes later, the guard comes out. The guy was gone. But the next morning, I found a knife under the door. No note. No comment. Moved out the same day. I was hitchhiking across the western United States. Stayed overnight in a cheap motel in Nevada. One floor, shabby but cheap. In the night, I wake up to screaming. I see 3 guys breaking into the room across the hall. They're beating someone up. I hear them. "Did you think you could just leave? You saw us." One of them is looking through my window. I turn off the light, lie down on the floor. I lay there all night, not breathing. In the morning, I moved out with no paperwork. I just left. I stopped staying in motels where the parking lot is closer to the door than the front desk. A friend from college had a part-time job delivering food at night. One order late at night to a private neighborhood on the outskirts of town. The gate is open, the house looks empty, but the camera says the order is confirmed. She gets out of the car, takes the package, goes to the door, knocks. No one opens it. Knocks again, silence. She was about to leave when the door opens. Inside, it's a completely dark room. A voice, as if a child's, "Come in, leave the food in the kitchen." She froze. Said she couldn't come in, the rules forbid it. The voice repeated, "Just come in." That's when she noticed that the car that was in the yard on the map was gone. She put the bag on the ground and walked back. Someone abruptly slammed the door from inside. When she was on her way back, she noticed headlights behind her. Someone drove out of that yard and followed it all the way to the highway, then turned off. From then on, no night work. And only with a gun. There was this girl living in Chicago. She rented a studio in a dysfunctional neighborhood, but it was cheap and she had school, a part-time job, and not enough money. One evening, she was coming back from the store with heavy bags and a guy, seemingly normal, was standing in the driveway. Smiling, friendly, says, "Can you wait a minute? I live here, I just lost my keys, my brother will come and open the door. And if it's not too much trouble, can you help me carry a couple bags later?" She said okay, went into the house. He kept up. On the stairs, she suddenly realized he was asking too many questions. Where she lived, if she was alone, if she had a boyfriend, if she went away a lot. It's like he's in the middle of something. They got to her floor. She turned to open the door and he stood too close. He asked, "Are you sure you live alone?" With an intonation that made my heart skip a beat. The girl worked on instinct. She shouted now, as if to someone in the apartment, opened the door and said loudly, "Dad, are you in here?" He froze, then turned around and silently walked away. 3 days later, police searched the building for a man suspected of assaulting women. His description matched. After that, she packed up and moved to her sister's house in another state. When I moved to LA, I rented a room in an old house with 3 other tenants. Everyone was normal except for one, Joe. He was overly friendly, always asking where I was, what time I was coming in, how I was sleeping. At first I thought he was just a weird dude. Then I started noticing things were shifting. The camera on my laptop's taped up, the tapes moved. I woke up one night with the door to my room ajar. I always close it. Checked, Joe's asleep. Or pretending to be. In the morning, I told him I was going away for a couple of days, but I stayed and put the old iPhone under the bed to record. A day later, I listened to it again. Someone was walking around the room at night. Very quiet. Creaking floorboards, breathing. My heels glistened just so.
Hey, like and subscribe to follow our new videos.